Hi guys! Welcome to my review of Once Upon a Time episode 521, Last Rites. This is an extremely controversial episode which has caused pandemonium and panic and outrage and division within the fandom, so I don't really know how this review is going to pan out. I'm just going to kind of give my thoughts on what's happened at this point. I don't even necessarily know if we'll really call this as much a review as just a chat about the general episode and what it means, what the outcome of that episode means for the show. And yeah, I hope you enjoy. So I'm going to get a few kind of just basic things out of the way before I get into the kind of nitty gritty part of the episode that we all know has to be discussed. So I think first I would just like to say that I was very pleased to see Snow and Charming reunited. That is always a nice moment. I just love that we have kind of like an iconic integral couple like that as part of the show who you just know everything's, well, you hope everything's always going to be okay with them, and seeing them reunited again always really cheers me up. Next thing to note, Cruella's presence just in general just always pleases me. So I enjoyed the scenes with her, even though she's being ridiculous. I always enjoy the scenes with her. So big thumbs up for Victoria Smurfit getting more scenes in this season because I have really enjoyed it. And some of the Camelot gang were back. Merida was there. I was really pleased to see Merida. I kind of had forgotten. I hadn't really thought about what she would be doing while all of the chaos was happening down in the underworld. So it was nice to see her again. So now that I've covered those kind of smaller, more minor points that I wanted to mention, I guess I just have to start talking about this, and I should have made notes because there's so many things that I wanted to say about it, but I guess I'm just going to kind of start talking about it and see what happens. I knew in advance that Robin was going to die because I read it in spoilers. I am one of these people who, I say I don't like to, I like to be surprised by things, but with a show like Once Upon a Time that I'm so incredibly invested in, I look at hashtags, I read all the behind the scenes stuff, I read interviews, I kind of will eat up whatever I can get my hands on in terms of the show, even if that is stuff in advance. So I did already know that Robin was the character who was going to die, pretty much. It was one of those things that had been leaked that wasn't like 100% confirmed, but it was pretty much a given that it was going to be Sean Maguire who was leaving the show. So I actually just before I start this, I actually also read a thing that said that Sean Maguire had wanted out of the show, that he wanted to concentrate on doing other things. And so I was like, oh, like poor Adam and Eddie, how awkward for them, because you've just, you've made this guy a series regular, you've written this like soulmate storyline in with Regina and they're like perfect for each other and everyone's like shipping Outlaw Queen and it's great, and then for him to turn around and say that he's leaving the show, what a shame. And I was getting really annoyed because there were so many people on Twitter having such a go at Adam and Eddie and saying, how could you do this, and this is so unfair, and I'm never watching the show again and whatever. And I'm sitting there on my high horse like, don't speak to Adam and Eddie like that. They have had no choice. The actor wanted to leave the show, so they've had to write him out, and what else were they supposed to do? The only believable way to have him leave the show would be to kill him, because there's no way that he would break up with Regina, and after everything that's happened with Zelina and the baby, no way that would happen. So watch the episode. I'll go back and talk about the episode in more depth once I'm finished this part of the episode. I almost said, welcome to another episode of Once Upon a Time Reviews with me. Anyway, watch the episode, completely destroyed, cried my eyes out. Went to start reading all the stuff that I hadn't read before it, so all the kind of like post-episode interviews and articles that get released and stuff after that, and discovered that Sean Maguire absolutely did not want to leave the show and was clearly very unhappy with the way that his character's story ended. I then felt awful because I'm like, oh, poor Sean, I've been like blaming him and saying that he wanted to leave the show, and saying that there's no way that Adam and Eddie would have written that character out of the show unless the actor wanted out of it. Unless there's a reason that the actor had to leave, they would not have killed him off. And they did. I'm just going to bluntly say this right now before I carry on. This is the first time in the history of Once Upon a Time, and that's like 5 whole seasons, where I genuinely do think that this has been a mistake. I feel like there's been a lot of tragic deaths, there's been a lot of really sad storylines, there's been a lot of dark moments for various characters over the seasons that people have got upset about and people have felt frustrated with. But I always have felt that even through those moments of like frustration, like when Emma became the dark one, I was gutted and I thought, oh no, I don't want to have to see her like this, and I don't want my favourite character to go through this, and what does it mean for her relationships with the people around her. But it created this really exciting, wonderful storyline that then led into everything that happened in season 5, and things that have happened with like Neil's death and Rumpel's past and various incidents that have happened throughout the history of the show that people have been unhappy about, but has led on to what I feel was kind of a more kind of interesting storyline. This is the first time that they've done something that, even though that I've been upset about and I haven't been able to justify, and most of the time in these situations I can go, well, I see why they did that. I didn't necessarily like it, but I totally get why they did it. I don't understand why they've done this. I'm actually going to make a video talking about this type of thing in terms of writing and fandoms and stuff. I'm going to make a whole separate video on that, which I'm really excited about actually, so I'm not going to go into too much depth on my thought process on that at the moment. I'm just going to say that I am an Outlaw Queen shipper, and that I enjoy the pairing, and I think that they've been a wonderful couple, and I've loved to see that relationship develop on screen, and I am gutted that it's over, but I'm not as huge a fan as I know that other people are. I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm like a full-on Outlaw Queen shipper. I would say that I am a fan of that relationship and I love them together, whereas in terms of Captain Swan, I'm very much a Captain Swan shipper. So I would say that for anyone whose like main ship in this show was Outlaw Queen, I am genuinely can't imagine how gutted you are right now, because I know that if they had killed off my favourite character for good, I would have been heartbroken. So I do totally understand why people are really upset about this. I think that there's so many other interesting ways that they could have done this. I was talking to Roisin about it yesterday and we were like, how else could they have done this and why would they do this? I even think I would have hated to see her go because I think Rebecca Mader's incredible, but I even think to kill Zelina in a situation where they maybe had Hades about to kill Regina and then Zelina sacrificed herself to save her, I think could have been more interesting, because you could have then had her grieving someone that she's lost, grieving the fact that she and her sister spent most of their lives hating each other, that they only just kind of reconnected and found each other and started to bond, and then she was taken away from her, and that could kind of start to like pull her to the dark side. And then you could have this tension of her love for Robin and the baby and Roland on one hand, and you know, Emma and Henry and everyone else on the one hand trying to keep her good, but then this huge sense of loss and devastation at having lost her sister kind of pulling her in the other direction. And I feel like that would have created the opportunity for Regina to go dark again without taking away one of the major reasons for a lot of fans watching the show. This is what I want to talk about in my next video in terms of like, writers shouldn't write the show purely to please the fans, if that makes sense. And I'm going to do an entire video on that, but I think that there's something interesting going on here with the reaction to this, in terms of the fact that so many people have said that they're going to leave the show, they're going to leave the fandom, they're not going to watch the show anymore. This is the end of it for them because they're too upset that there was no need to kill Sean Maguire's character off. There was absolutely no need to destroy the relationship between Robin and Regina. And lots of people are now saying, because you have done this, I am not going to watch the show anymore. And I think that there's something interesting going on there in terms of the kind of relationship between social media and television at the moment. So I want to make a whole video on that, so look out for that over the next few days. I think it's very easy for me to sit here as a fan of Emma and Kellyanne's relationship and say that I was heartbroken by the episode, but I'm not going to leave the show, I'm not going to leave the fandom, because you know, my favourite pairings still together, and in fact they were reunited in this episode, a scene that I will just keep watching on a loop for the rest of my life, I think. And so it's very easy for me to sit here and say like, oh, it's ridiculous to say that you're going to leave the show just, you know, because you don't like a particular way that the writers have gone. But as I say, as a huge fan of Captain Swan, that's really easy for me to say, and I don't necessarily know. I like to think that I wouldn't walk away from the show. Like, I feel like if they'd killed Kellyanne off, I would have found it very difficult to keep watching it, but I don't think I would have walked away from the show because the show itself means so much to me. Yes, okay, I absolutely love the Captain Swan relationship, but the show in general means a huge amount to me, and so I don't think I would walk away from it even if they did kill off my favourite character. So I don't know, it's very difficult for me to say. But let me know in the comments down below how you feel about it. If you are an Outlaw Queen shipper and you have decided to leave the fandom, I'm really sorry to hear that, and it makes me sad, but I do get it. So let me know how you feel in the comments down below. I will say that what Sean Maguire has said is that he feels that Robin wasn't really written for this season and that the character wasn't developed the way that he should be. And I completely agree with that. I really don't understand. I think there's something weird going on. There is something very weird going on here, because why would you sign someone up to be a series regular, create a storyline that makes them like essentially the soulmate of one of your main characters, have this relationship develop over the course of a couple of seasons, and then make them a series regular and then just not have them in the show? For like a huge chunk of 5B, Robin was off in the woods. Like, he got no screen time, he was away with the baby, and yes, of course he had to protect the baby, but we never saw him. He never got any screen time, he never got any lines. And then he got brought back in the kind of episode before this one, reunited with Regina, was heartbroken to see that she was trusting Selena with the baby, and then like in the next episode he gets killed. I find it very odd. It doesn't really seem in keeping with the way that the writers have made this show over the past 5 seasons. So I don't know, I am confused by it. I don't get it. And I also don't get, because again, this is something that ties into the other video that I'm going to make, but essentially what they've ended up succeeding in doing is having like a huge chunk of the fandom like blame and villainize another couple of characters, which they shouldn't be doing, for what's happened to Robin. So, you know, Emma's getting a lot of stick for this, and Emma and Hook are getting a lot of stick for this. When they are characters within the show, they are not the writers. It's not their fault. You know, it's not characters' fault. It's a writing decision. And so it just seems like a strange decision. I am looking forward to seeing where they go with this in season 6, but I don't think that they can justify it, and I don't think that there's any amount of interesting storylines that they can pull out for Regina now that will make people forgive them for killing Robin. But that's another topic for this other video. So in terms of the Hook and Emma scenes, like that reunion scene, and a lot of people who are on the Outlaw Queen leaving the fandom side have said that they felt that it was completely inappropriate that their reunion scene was at Robin's graveside. One thing that has been said is that they felt that it was inappropriate that Emma was the one who was left at the end of the funeral to like say goodbye on her own, which I completely agree with. Like, that should have been Regina's moment. I don't understand why that was Emma's. I understand from the point of view that Emma obviously feels guilty for what's happened to him and she blames herself, and Snow's kind of trying to talk her out of that, but I do understand from that point of view why Emma wanted to say goodbye. But that's a moment that should have been Regina's. She should have got the saying goodbye by herself graveside scene. So I felt that was probably not the best choice. However, moving on from that, a lot of people have said that they felt it was really inappropriate that Emma and Hook like kissed in front of Robin's grave. Now, what a lot of other people have been saying is that actually, if you look at the kind of angle of it behind them, so like behind where they are standing kissing, is actually where Killian's grave is. So they were kind of actually kissing in front of his grave, with Robin's in the background. I do understand why that would totally suck if you're an Outlaw Queen shipper and you see this. That's not cool. But at the same time, I think within the context of the storyline, like, Emma's turned around and the love of her life has literally come back from the dead. He has been dead as far as she's concerned. He is in the underworld going to move on, and as far as she was concerned, him getting those pages from Hades to help her defeat him was his kind of way of saying goodbye, and that was him moving on. Speaking of that scene at his graveside earlier in the episode, Jennifer Morrison was just stupendous as always, and that moment where you saw her just break down and feel like that was the last kind of chance that she'd had to save him and it was gone, and now he's going to be moving on, and you just saw how hurt and sad she was. That was just so beautifully done. I thought that was a nicely written moment. I thought that it was a very, very nicely acted moment. So I thought that was really good. But yeah, you know, the love of her life's literally just reappeared from the dead, and so I don't think that we can necessarily blame her for forgetting where she is at that time and getting caught up in the joy of the fact that he's back. So I do understand why some people didn't like it, but I think that the problem with it was the Emma saying goodbye aspect of the scene rather than the actual kiss. Killian teaming up with Arthur in the underworld I thought was an interesting choice. I, to begin with, wasn't sure about it. I thought, there's no way like these two would be pairing up now. However, as the scenes kind of progressed and we saw that idea towards the end of it that Arthur might stay in the underworld because this might be the broken kingdom that he wants to repair, I thought that was a really cool idea. I liked that a lot. And Roisin said yesterday, do you think they'll do a spin-off that's like Arthur saving the underworld? Which I think would be brilliant. So I like that. I thought that was a very nice way of writing that kind of story into it and kind of saying goodbye to Arthur. The moment when Cillian was going to move on and he kind of walked out into the light and then was greeted by Zeus was just, I think if I hadn't known that he was going to be okay, again this is the problem when you read spoilers, if I hadn't known that he was going to be okay, I would have been even more of a mess than I already was. I was like a huge mess already, but because I knew what was coming and knew that he was going to be okay, I was kind of just more waiting to see how Zeus was going to do this or how it was going to pan out. And how he was going to get back to Storybrooke, but I thought that was probably the only really way that they could do it. I don't think there's any other way that you could have him leave the underworld, especially once Hades had been defeated. So I like that, and I loved the fact that he was able to get those pages to Emma, and I loved the fact that when she was looking through the book and she kind of stumbled across the picture from when they went back in time and they were dancing and she had the red dress on, I love, that's my favourite episode, and so seeing her kind of look at that again and remember that and look back on it fondly was really, really sweet. Speaking of which, the actual kind of defeat of Hades, I was really glad to see him go in the end. Actually, he just was so awful, and I thought that Greg Germann did a really good job with the character. I know that not everyone was 100% sure, and there were moments that I wasn't 100% sure either, but overall I felt like he played it very well. But I just felt utterly sick by the end with the way that he was manipulating Zelena. And I know that sounds ridiculous because Zelena has been a very villainous character herself, but just the fact that he was giving her this hope that he loved her and he would do anything for her, and that's all that she's ever wanted really, is to have someone love her and be there for her, and she's never really had that, and that's why she went down the path that she went down. The fact that he manipulated her like that, especially after she and Regina had kind of formed a bit of a truce, I couldn't bear it. I couldn't bear to watch it. It was awful. Those scenes at the beginning of the episode where she was standing with the baby and saying, oh, but when are Regina and the others going to get back, and shouldn't we wait for them? And him saying, oh, I don't know, I think we need to protect ourselves and we can take over this kingdom and all that. And then using like her past kind of issues with Regina to throw back in her face and use against her and say that these people will never really forgive them and never trust them and they have to take over for themselves. Oh, I just thought it was dreadful. I thought it was awful, and I have never been more happy, I don't think, to see a villain get their comeuppance. I was really glad that we got the couple of Rob and Regina scenes that we did get in this episode. There wasn't enough, not by a long shot, and apparently there was a scene between Robin and Roland that got cut, which I think is ludicrous, because if that was his last episode, then they really should have been trying to tie up all the loose ends that they could. So I don't think that that's cool, and I don't really understand that moment where he was saying to her, like, you're my future, and everything was just, it was so horribly heartbreaking because they'd had so little time together this season, and then to have that moment and then having taken away from her so quickly after it was awful. I think the only positive thing out of that moment, not that moment, but the death scene moment, was the fact that it was Zelena who then chose her sister over Hades and chose to put her faith and her trust in Regina over Hades. When she realised what he was doing to her, she chose her sister, and so I think that was nice, and I felt that there's been some really nice development in the Regina and Zelena storyline over the course of this season, which is why I think that they could have even used that as their way into season 6 to lose Zelena rather than... Not that, as I say, I would have hated to lose Zelena because I think she's a brilliant character, but anyway, I digress. I thought that the Olympian crystal idea was interesting, and one thing that Roisin and I have been talking about is that the way that Robin died and the way that Hades died was different, and so when Robin died, he kind of just disappeared. His soul kind of seemed to disappear, but his body was still there, whereas for Hades, he kind of like crumbled into a pile of ash. So there's something there. Is there a possibility there that there could be something in that could allow Robin to come back? Sean Maguire doesn't think so, but I feel like that maybe, I hadn't noticed that, it was Ocean's boyfriend that pointed it out actually, and I feel like that is really that's definitely something worth noting. The only thing that I would say is that Robin was obviously like zapped with it, like it was like a laser, whereas Hades was actually stabbed with it, so there is a difference from that point of view. Another thing that I think was incredibly unfair was the fact that not only did Robin have to die, but apparently he doesn't even get like an afterlife. He doesn't get to move on, he doesn't get to, even if he had to go via the underworld, go and, you know, resolve his issues and then move on, he's just like wiped from existence. I think that that was another bad move from my perspective in terms of the story. The writers obviously have their reasons for doing that, but I don't really get that. I feel like it would even have been preferable to not have that aspect of it to make it quite as difficult to watch. So when he died and Regina was kind of sitting there with his body, I was just an absolute mess. I was crying my eyes out, even though I knew that it was coming. I felt like the actual reality of it was just so horrible to watch. I would like to know in the comments down below what you think about this, how you feel about this turn in the storyline, what it means to you in terms of a viewer of the show, why you, if you have any theories and why you think the writers made this decision, let me know in the comments down below. The one last thing that I'm going to talk about just before I go, because I'm actually cooking my dinner as I film this and the cooker keeps beeping, so I have to keep getting up. If I've moved like 7 times during this video, it's because my cooker keeps beeping and I have to keep getting up and going and switching off the oven or changing temperatures and stuff. So I'm going to have to go, but the last thing that I will say is just another comment on the, I'm going to end this video on as happy a note as I can, which is that the reunion scene I just thought was so well acted by Colin and Jen that I can't even explain it. I feel like there was just this like natural, like totally natural like exuberance and joy, and she sort of couldn't control herself and he laughed and everything about it was just so lovely. And even though I know that a lot of people are unhappy, it was weird. I felt guilty for enjoying that moment so much. I felt like, oh, shouldn't be enjoying this as much because of everything else that's happening in this episode, but I did. And I have to say, true to the story that I love in this show, which I love a lot of stories in this show, but one of my favourites is the Captain Swan storyline, and so I enjoyed it a lot and I felt like that was such a lovely moment and one of these really pivotal, exciting moments that we've just waited so long for, and so I thought that was beautifully done. I love that she just like couldn't even be bothered listening to how he'd managed to come back. All that mattered to her was that he was there and he was alive, and in this moment of like grief and having lost someone, just the realisation of how important it is to have him back in her life, I thought it was just beautifully done. So my cooker is beeping again and I'm going to have to go, but thank you very much for watching this. Let me know in the comments down below how you felt about the episode, if you are still going to be watching the show next season. I know that I am gutted, but I am still going to be watching it because it is my favourite TV show, and even if I don't agree with all of the decisions that the writers make, I am just going to keep watching with bated breath to see what they do next. So cannot wait for the finale. I will have a review of that up next week, and I hope that you have a great week. So thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye! So he's on fire, she's lying having what seems to be some sort of heart attack, she can barely move, and he's saying, you have to go and get your heart, you have to put it back, you have to get it and save yourself. And then she chose it.